If you grew up watching football on Sunday afternoons in the 1970s, the sound of the Astrodome alone could tell you something special was happening in Houston. It wasn't just noise, it was thousands of voices in powder blue, chanting the words that defined a decade, Luvia Blue. The Oilers never won a championship, but Houston adopted them like family anyway. This was a team built on toughness, a bruising running game, a defense that hit like it meant something personal, and a coach in cowboy boots who talked like your favorite uncle. Now, we're going back to that Astrodome roar, starting with the running back who made an entire city believe. Number 1. Earl Campbell. On a Monday night in November of 1978, Miami's defense knew exactly what was coming. Everybody in the stadium knew. Earl Campbell was getting the football over and over, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop him. By the time the clock ran out, Campbell had rushed for 199 yards and 4 touchdowns, dragging tacklers with him play after play. That night captured everything Houston loved about their new running back. Campbell didn't dance around defenders. He ran through them, hitting the line with a violence that made grown men wince from the stands. He arrived in Houston in 1978 as the first overall pick, fresh off a Heisman Trophy season at Texas, and didn't take long to prove the hype was real. Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year 3 years running, NFL MVP in 1979. Bum Phillips, the coach who drafted him, refused to change a thing about his punishing style. "I'm not going to change his style," Phillips said. "Why would I?" Off the field, Campbell was soft-spoken, almost shy, a striking contrast to the way he played on Sundays. Teammates remember a humble kid from Tyler, Texas, who never seemed to enjoy the violence the way fans enjoyed watching it. The physical toll of that style followed him well beyond his playing days. Years after retirement, Campbell developed serious problems with his spine, and he has said he believes it traces back to a particularly violent hit he took during a game in 1979. Doctors who later diagnosed him with spinal stenosis said it was remarkable he was never paralyzed on the field. Campbell has spoken openly about the pain that followed him into his 70s, while also pushing back against false rumors about his health. In January 2026, he took to social media himself to reassure fans that he was doing just fine. Campbell was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1991. But in Houston, he never needed a jersey retirement to be remembered. He was the running back who made an entire city believe, even when the record book never delivered them a championship. Would a running style like his even survive under today's rules? Or did football need players willing to hit like that to make Sundays feel the way they did? If the sight of a linebacker built like a tight end, chasing down running backs from sideline to sideline, is the image burned into your memory from this defense, you already know who's next. Number 2, Robert Dr. Doom Brazil. The nickname came from a Chicago breakfast table, not a highlight reel. During the 1975 College All-Star Game, a teammate spotted a newspaper story about a comic book villain called Dr. Doom and thought instantly of the ferocious rookie linebacker out of Jackson State. Broadcaster Howard Cosell picked up the name on national television, and it never let go. At 6'4" and 241 pounds, with sprinter speed rare for a linebacker in his era, Brazil hit ball carriers with a force that made opposing offenses dread third and short. Houston selected Brazil 6th overall in 1975, part of the same blockbuster trade that brought Curly Culp to the Oilers. He won Defensive Rookie of the Year and quickly became the emotional engine of a defense that carried Houston to back-to-back AFC Championship game appearances in 1978 and 1979, racking up 9 tackles in that first title game alone. More than 55,000 fans packed the Astrodome to welcome the team home after both of those losses. The kind of turnout that told players even heartbreak felt different in Houston. 7 trips to the Pro Bowl and a place on the NFL's all-decade team for the 1970s made Brazil one of the most feared defenders of his generation. For decades, though, his name rarely came up in Hall of Fame conversations. That changed in 2018, when Brazil finally received his call to Canton, nearly 40 years after his best seasons on the field. By then, Dr. Doom had already traded one demanding job for another, working for years as a middle school special education teacher. It was more difficult being a teacher, he later admitted. Was Dr. Doom simply overlooked because of where he played? Or does his late induction tell us something about how differently the league remembers defenses that never quite reached a Super Bowl? Stories like these survive because of the fans who lived them, the people who filled the Astrodome or watched from their living rooms and never forgot how it felt. If you enjoy revisiting the teams and players who shaped the old NFL, subscribe to Gridiron Rewind. There are many more Sunday afternoons still waiting to be brought back into the conversation. Number 3, Dan Pastorini. Dan Pastorini never seemed satisfied with how dangerous Sundays already were. In the off-season, he raced unlimited jet drag boats at speeds that alarmed even his own franchise, so much so that the Oilers eventually banned him from getting behind the wheel of a drag car during his playing days. It fit Pastorini perfectly. This was a quarterback who treated risk like a hobby, on the field and off it. On the field, Pastorini was every bit as fearless. Drafted 3rd overall in 1971 out of Santa Clara, he spent 9 seasons as Houston's starting quarterback, absorbing hit after hit from defenses that knew exactly how to make him pay for standing in the pocket. He took the beating, got up, and called the next play. Handing off to Earl Campbell and trusting Bum Phillips' physical run-first approach, Pastorini helped turn Houston into a team nobody wanted to face in December during those consecutive AFC title runs. The defining moment of his career, though, came in a game Houston didn't even win. In the 3rd quarter of the 1979 AFC Championship game, trailing Pittsburgh 17-10, Pastorini floated a 6-yard pass to receiver Mike Renfro in the back corner of the end zone. Television replays appeared to show Renfro getting both feet down inbounds. With no instant replay available, officials huddled near the goal line for several minutes before ruling the pass incomplete. Houston settled for a field goal instead of a tying touchdown, and Pittsburgh pulled away for a 27-13 win on the way to another Super Bowl. Houston fans still call it one of the worst calls in NFL history. Was that pass a touchdown? Or has more than 4 decades of frustration made the moment bigger than it really was? If you watched that game live, tell us where you were sitting and who was in the room with you when the officials finally made their call. He was traded to Oakland in 1980, and 1 year later, almost fittingly, won a Super Bowl ring with a Raiders team that reflected the same rebellious spirit he had always carried. Today, Pastorini still lives in Texas and remains one of the most colorful figures of that era. A quarterback who never put up gaudy numbers, but never let Houston forget what toughness looked like at the position. Pastorini supplied the nerve. Houston's front seven, though, was built through something far more calculated, one of the smartest trades the franchise ever made. Number 4, Curly Culp. On October 22, 1974, Houston pulled off one of the most lopsided trades in franchise history. In exchange for defensive lineman John Matuszak, the Oilers acquired Curly Culp, already a Super Bowl champion, along with a first-round pick that would become Robert Brazile the following spring. In one move, Bum Phillips had rebuilt the heart of his defense. Culp didn't need long to justify the deal. Built like a wrestler, because he had been one, an NCAA heavyweight champion at Arizona State, Culp played the nose tackle position with a leverage and strength few centers in the league could handle alone, commanding double and triple teams almost every snap and freeing Brazile and the rest of Houston's linebackers to fly to the football. Culp had already won a championship with Kansas City in Super Bowl IV, but it was with the Oilers that he became a full-time centerpiece, anchoring the defense through those back-to-back AFC title runs. He earned NFL Defensive Player of the Year honors in 1975 and added multiple Pro Bowl selections to a resume that carried him to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Teammates remembered Culp as quiet and unassuming off the field, a striking contrast to the chaos he created in opposing backfields. He stayed connected to the Houston football community long after retiring, showing up at reunions with old teammates like Elvin Bethea. Curly Culp passed away in November of 2021 at the age of 75, leaving behind a Hall of Fame legacy built on one of the best trades in Oilers history. Culp controlled the middle. On the edge, Houston depended on a quieter kind of greatness that kept showing up one Sunday after another for 16 straight years. Number 5, Elvin Bethea. For 16 seasons, Elvin Bethea did something almost nobody else in Oilers history managed. He simply never left the lineup. Drafted in the third round out of North Carolina A&T in 1968, Bethea started at defensive end in his very first game and didn't miss another until he broke his arm against Oakland in November of 1977. By retirement, he had played in 210 games, a franchise durability record. Bethea wasn't the loudest personality on the roster, and he didn't chase the spotlight. But ask any offensive tackle who lined up across from him in the 1970s, and they will point to a single afternoon in 1976 against San Diego, when Bethea sacked the Chargers quarterback 4 times and recovered a fumble in the same game. The kind of performance that made him one of the most technically sound pass rushers of his generation, quick off the snap and nearly impossible to game plan around. His unofficial career total of 105 sacks remains the best in franchise history, compiled before sacks were even an official statistic. 8 trips to the Pro Bowl, and a central piece of the same defense that carried Houston to consecutive AFC championship games, alongside Brazil and Culp. In 2003, Bethea's contributions were finally recognized in Canton, when he became the first player from his college inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The Oilers retired his jersey in 1983, while he was still playing, a rare honor that spoke to how deeply the organization valued him. Bethea has remained connected to the Houston football community ever since, a living link to an era many fans still call the most emotional stretch in franchise history. Was Bethea underrated simply because sacks weren't officially counted during most of his prime? Or does his 8 Pro Bowl resume put that question to rest on its own? And if you remember a coach on the sideline in blue jeans and a white cowboy hat, refusing to wear it indoors out of respect, you already know who closes out this list. Number 6. Bum Phillips. Bum Phillips never looked like a football coach, and that was exactly the point. While other sidelines were filled with headsets and clipboards, Phillips stood in blue jeans, cowboy boots, and a white Stetson hat, except indoors, where he always removed it. "Mama always said if it can't rain on you, you're indoors," he liked to explain. Phillips took over as head coach in 1975, inheriting a franchise with little recent success, and built it into one of the most feared teams in the AFC through a physical, run-first identity. He drafted Earl Campbell, engineered the trade for Curly Culp and Robert Brazil, and trusted Dan Pastorini to run an offense built around a defense-first philosophy that carried Houston to back-to-back AFC championship game appearances in 1978 and 1979. Both times the Oilers came up short against Pittsburgh's Steel Curtain. And both times, something remarkable happened anyway. Tens of thousands of fans lined the streets to welcome the team home, celebrating a season that ended without a trophy as if it had ended with one. Phillips, ever the storyteller, captured the spirit of it best when he said of the rival Cowboys, "They may be America's team, but we're Texas's team." He was fired after the 1980 season following an early playoff exit, a decision that stung Houston fans for years. Phillips went on to coach the New Orleans Saints before retiring to a ranch in Goliad, Texas, surrounded by family. Earl Campbell, who considered him a second father, stayed close to him until the very end. Bum Phillips passed away on October 18, 2013, at the age of 90. Hundreds gathered for his memorial, including many of the players who had once called him coach. For a franchise that never reached a Super Bowl under his watch, his legacy in Houston always mattered more than the record book. He was the man who made an entire city fall in love with a football team, cowboy hat and all. The Houston Oilers of the Louvier Blue era never hoisted a Super Bowl trophy. Twice they came within one win of the big game, and twice the Pittsburgh Steelers stood in their way. But ask anyone who lived through those Astrodome Sundays and they will tell you the record book only tells part of the story. This was a team defined by toughness, a running back who ran through tacklers, a defense that hit like it had something to prove, a quarterback who never backed down, and a coach who made an entire city believe in a team that had given them little reason to before. Decades later, Houston fans still argue about what could have been. So where does this Oilers team belong among the great near misses in NFL history? Was Bum Phillips' physical, run-first philosophy ahead of its time? Or did it ultimately cost Houston a championship? Tell us what you remember, especially if you were there, in the stands in front of a television or listening on the radio. And subscribe to Gridiron Rewind as we keep bringing back the teams, players, and Sundays that shaped the old NFL.